So I wanted to discuss the basics of using WebSockets. I've used them for many years now. I believe that they're a good way to be able to have real-time communication between like a client and a server. I'm going to show you how to set up your own WebSocket using Flask, in particular from Python. This is a good example of what's going on. Once I hit start updates, it basically will constantly send out information in this socket emit function. The socket emit function is basically just using this call here called server update, and it basically just has the time to it. The other important side of this is going to be the front end side of this. When you're using plain JavaScript, you can normally just import it with a script tag. But if you're using something else, like in Blazor, you may have to import in their package to be able to then make it work properly. I'll create a socket variable to immediately connect to the WebSocket server. And once I have that connection here, then I can be able to use it all up and down my code. When I do on connect, it will run this function of handle connect, which will say client connected. And then from there, it will then do server update, where it will say data socket connected. Now, doing an emit on the back end will have an effect on the front end if you're looking for it. So when you say socket on server update in the JavaScript on the front end side, it's looking for that emit. Now that we see what this emit is, it's going to put that over to the screen. So when we were looking here, it first said socket connected, because that's essentially what we had in the data that we passed through. And as you can see in the function message argument here, we basically pass in that data that we get from right here over into the text content so that you can see it on the screen. Once we hit the start updates button, we have an event listener in JavaScript, just some basic JavaScript that will do the socket emit, right? Since this is on the front end, it's going to emit that information on the back end, and we have something for that that's waiting on the back end called start update. It's going to use that thread that we were talking about before to make the background process of basically constantly sending the time. This specifically doing the while statement or the while loop allows you to constantly send back or constantly emit information, which is one out of many ways to be able to constantly ping back information, so that for this example, we're getting back the time every single second.